The time I've long dreaded is here. This improvised EQ6 mount propped up with a piece of wood will have to go, and it has to be replaced with a proper pier. If I get the polar alignment wrong on the pier, obviously it's useless, and I have to somehow manage to destroy it. So this will be very exciting indeed. So that journey, it starts here. The pier, or rather pier mold, is something I put together from bits that I found at the local plumbing store. The free bits, I don't know what they are, what they're called, but put together they form a really good mold for the pier, which is 1,250 millimeters tall. My improvised tripod from earlier that I know fits perfectly in the observatory is 1,200, so it's a pretty good close match. The top of the pier is a bit wider than I wanted. It's 270 millimeters, whilst the top plate, the flange, is 180. But the difference between shouldn't be a problem, and the mount head should be able to swing freely without hitting the pier underneath. So as I mentioned, getting the polar alignment right is absolutely essential. So I have the polar alignment correct on this mount. So what I'm going to do is try to get polar alignment as a line on the floor. So I have put a spirit level up here that is then obviously sticking in the direction exactly of the polar alignment, and then I have built a little plumb line that's actually going to drop down so that I can actually get markings on the floor that are aligned with the polar alignment, and then that line can then obviously be duplicated by just having equal distance between each point to the next line in parallel. So yeah, hopefully that will be a really good way to make sure I actually get the polar alignment correct. So this is how I'm going to figure out the polar alignment, or rather project the polar alignment from the polar aligned mount to the floor. So the idea is that this will give me a way to actually draw a line that goes exactly alongside the polar alignment based on how the mount has been polar aligned. And there we go. That should be perfect kind of projection of the polar alignment of the mount. So we now have the line that marks the polar alignment. So now it's a matter of also finding the absolute center in the observatory to have as much clearance from the walls as possible. So this marks the middle. It's equal distance from all different walls, so that should give us as much clearance as possible. And that's the bottom of the pedestal, and it's been clearly marked out now. So I'm gonna have a look at getting the rebars down now, and this is what the full pier looks like. It's 3 parts, 2 bottom parts and then the top part, and I can even screw that together if need be, so hopefully that should work. So, and also the top obviously needs to be cut off, and I might lower it a tiny bit because it's supposed to be 1.2 meters, but it is a bit higher than that right now, so it needs to come down a tiny bit. So I did a final little test, and it turned out that the center wasn't exactly where I thought it was. So luckily enough, I did a kind of double check and shifted it a bit to make sure it's definitely in the middle of the room now. So I've now marked the middle, which is the true middle. But my thinking here now is that I want, when I put this on and I put concrete in, I want to make sure first it doesn't flow out, that this stays where it needs to stay, and also it's actually a bit higher than it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just process this circle down using the angle grinder and a new piece of cutting thingy that I've never used before, so that'll be pretty exciting. But the entire idea is to lower this, maybe this much or something, just so that this fits snugly and it gives a bit more support and also lowers the overall height. So that's the idea, that's the theory, and now we're going to do something I've never done before, so it's a bit exciting. Well, I'm glad I'm not recording that because it's loud, very loud and very, very dusty. But I now created a circle around here that follows the mold perfectly, and what's even better is it's straight. Well, I can't see that, but I can assure you it's straight. So firstly that goes on there, then this goes on there, then this goes on here. And obviously the block will be cut at a reasonable height, and even at that kind of like height, it's still completely straight. So the first tiny little step towards a properly aligned and level pier has been taken. The rebars and the threaded rods that come from this top plate, obviously I don't want them to collide inside. It's very unlikely, but still, why risk it? So I'm going to start by marking where the top threaded rods goes down, so I can stay as clear as possible from them with the rebar. So I'm just going to mark that here. So we've got that there, got that there, we got that there. So now we have those marked. It'll make it a bit easier to figure out where we're going to put the rebars to make sure they don't get in the way. The dots, except that one, are where I'm going to put the rebars. The inner ring is from the top, or the narrowest part possible. I do not plan for the rebar to go all the way up, but I thought, well, let's stay clear of it just in case. So yeah, so I think that will be a good balanced place. It doesn't look very symmetric, but it's the rebars are staying clear of the threaded rods that goes down. I wouldn't say it's going nowhere, but it's going somewhere, but not just very fast. So this is what I managed to do with quite a lot of effort, and I want it really much deeper than that, much deeper. So I think it's time to check with the neighbour if I can borrow his concrete drill, because this trustworthy good old hammer drill has served me very well, but this is getting a bit on the tough side. So yeah. So my fantastic neighbour has left me a bit more heavy duty and more fit for purpose drill. So I'm now going to continue working on getting the rebar holes drilled, and after we're going to epoxy them in place. So in accordance with the table here for the drill bit size on the epoxy, we need 110 millimeters. So 110 millimeters needs to be there. Yeah. I'm just going to make it a marking there. We'll drill to that depth throughout. So next thing I need to do is to get the top part of the pier mold. So I'm just using a normal metal saw to saw it off as evenly as possible as I can at the top, and we'll see what that looks like. Well, maybe not precision engineering, but it's good enough.